welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I last recorded anything, but Inktober is coming up and I wanted to give everybody a little bit of time to prepare, and I thought I would talk about some of the tools I'll be using this year for Inktober, which are different than I've ever used before, and they're a little bit exciting to me. If you watched my video last year where I prepared for Inktober, I did a lot of ink washes, I did a lot of pen work, but this year I'm going to be focusing on using calligraphy pen and ink, which is totally kind of a different ballgame. So I just wanted to talk about each of the materials I'll be using. I used this last year. I still have some. This is Dr. P.H. Marten's Black Star Matte India ink. It's waterproof. This works really great. It has very dark, flat blacks. I will also be using, from last year, Dr. P.H. Marten's Bleed Proof White. It is very white. Not shockingly, it is, however, not an ink. It doesn't really have an ink-like texture. You kind of put a little water on your brush, dip it in there. This is more like almost a clay-like texture. I can't even describe it very well. Maybe like a dried out paint or something. It's a little less wet this year than it even was yet last year, but it does work. I use it all the time still. Again, still have a lot from last year, so I'll use that. I also might use masking fluid, just depending on whether or not I'm going to do any big washes. Keep in mind that this needs to be shaken. Mine hasn't been shook in a while. In order to keep it fresh, I might need to just buy some new, but this is Winsor & Newton. It works pretty well, but it can chew up your paper, so be careful. Definitely test before using it. My new tools that are new to me this year, are kind of this set. Well, I guess this water bottle is somewhat new to me, but it's just a water bottle, in case I want to do some wet on wet washes. But everything down here is new. This is the Travelogue sketchbook. I've already done my Inktober entry page, and it's just a Travelogue by hand book. It's a very nice, smooth, flat paper. It does appear to be thick enough to not transfer too much of the design from one page to another. I will be just doing one page at a time, though. I'm not going to do any of the backs of my pages. I'm in the fortunate situation where I don't have to be that careful about my paper consumption. Obviously, for the sake of the environment, you want to be as conscious as you can, but this book will probably last me the next 2 or 3 Inktobers, so I'm not too concerned about that. But it's very nice. It's got a linen cover. It's probably, I think, $13, $14 on Amazon. I did get everything on Amazon. I've got Dr. P.H. Marten's Bombay Sepia India ink. I took a picture of what this looks like before you shake it. Both this ink and the next ink I show you will definitely settle a lot. When I first got this, there was a very thick yellow sediment at the top, and I couldn't even dip her out of it because it was so settled. I don't think that's necessarily something that's happened because of the ink or the ink quality. I think that's entirely because it sits on Amazon's shelves for, 6 months before you ever get it. This is Dr. P.H. Marten's Iridescent Copperplate Gold. This also settles a lot. I've already shaken it before starting this video, but as you can see, it's already settled quite a bit, and it takes some vigorous shaking. I also recommend with this one, what really helped bring it together a little bit more was I just ran the whole bottle under warm water, just kind of stuck it under, ran the bottle under warm water, and that allowed a lot of the sediment on the bottom to get picked back up. In the iridescent colors, that sediment is often what makes it shiny. So if that's what you bought it for, make sure you shake it. This is Speedball pen cleaner. You'll notice it's very dark. When you get this, it is clear. So obviously I've already been practicing a little bit with it. How you're supposed to use this pen cleaner, the Speedball pen cleaner, is to dump all your nibs into it and really let them sit in there for a half hour. How I find myself using it is that I dump while still on the pen, I dunk the nib in there and then just like dry it off with a towel. That works really well for me. As you can see, all my nibs look pretty clean. This pen and nib set is the Speedball Manga set. It comes with a variety of sizes. B1 being the largest, B3, B5, B6. There's this one down here, and these are calligraphy nibs. So this is a small calligraphy nib, and obviously this is a little tiny one. It actually has its own holder it fits in. So that's what I'm starting with. That's sort of my starting point. So today I just wanted to do two things. I wanted to show you my title page and announce my theme, which this year is going to be skeletal. All the things I'm going to do for Inktober this year are going to somehow be related to skeletons. Not necessarily human skeletons, but skeletons of all kinds, either directly or indirectly. So that's kind of fun. I will be using the official prompt list, but I'm going to be inspired by my skeletal theme. And the other thing I wanted to do today was just do quick swatches of all of these materials, just so you, dear friends, have the opportunity to see what they're like in action. I know it's early enough that you still have time to buy anything you need to buy in time for Inktober, so I'm going to go ahead and put the biggest nib on here. I have tested all these nibs already, and if you're interested of like a full nib discussion, we can certainly do that at a later date. Just let me know. Leave a comment below. I'm going to fill this nib first with black ink. Kind of let the big drop on the end fall. With these big nibs, you tend to get many more of those bubbles and drips, I've noticed. So as you can see, this big B5 nib with this black mat makes a very deep, dark, bold area. I'm making this big because I just want to see how the inks interact when they lay over each other. Like, I know the white covers this, but I don't know how the gold covers it, for example. Remember when using a calligraphy pen that you need to hold it at a 45-degree angle? Oh, that's kind of like this. In order for it to allow the ink to flow. I do want to show you these larger calligraphy pens. Their reservoir, instead of just being a hole in the middle, like this small one, is actually like there's a piece of metal that catches, I don't know if you can see that here, the ink in between the two flaps of metal. It's very interesting. It's totally different than anything I've ever seen. All right, so I've drawn that big black flat matte line. We're gonna go ahead and dip this in my brush cleaner here. Get a towel, wipe that off. The other thing I love about the matte black is that it really dries quickly. It's almost dry already. If you're using that for washes though, beware, because that can be a little bit startling if you're used to watercolor, for example. It dries way faster than watercolor, and because it's permanent, you really cannot move it around at all after it's dry. This is the Sepia. You'll notice this starts very dark, and it's going to dry a little lighter, but it really is very close to black. It's much more obvious it's a difference if you're using a smaller amount of it. Okay. Okay. And last but not least, ooh, really put that on tight. Is the gold. Now really what I want to test today a lot is exactly how this gold overlaps with all of these other colors. Again, you don't want too much excess. I do have to say, once you get this gold mixed, it is beautiful, at least when it's wet. A lot of these iridescent colors do kind of lose their luster as they dry. I'm not sure how well that shines through. I hope well in the video, but like I said, this is a very beautiful gold. I imagine all iridescent inks are like this, but it does not move as easily across the paper as the other colors do. I suspect that's because what makes it iridescent is particles, and there is some granulation in the ink. So it's just not quite as smooth. I think if you were doing large areas, it might be easier to do it with a brush than with a nib like I'm doing this. But, you know, it's not hard. It's just harder than, say, putting the black down. Black is definitely the easiest thing to put down, for sure. All right. Now I'm going to take more of this gold and go over what we've done before. The sepia is still not dry, which is interesting. The matte gold dries significantly, or I'm sorry, the matte black dries significantly faster than the sepia does. I'm interested to see how this dries. Right now, it looks like the iridescent gold covers the black and to some extent the sepia, although that might be because it's not totally dry yet. But it certainly seems to cover the black very well. I guess we'll see in a mere moment here as it dries. And while we're waiting on that, I'm going to go ahead and take a little dab. I'm going to clean off this brush. Oops. Oh, boy. So that's something to be aware of when you're dealing with dip pens and ink at all. Dripping is a huge factor. You're going to drip all over everything. I definitely recommend buying either acetone or something like the Speedball pen cleaner, if for no other reason than to clean your desk. Even if you don't care if you ruin your nibs or not, your desk is going to be a mess. I've already cleaned my desk several times just since getting these tools to practice with. For the bleed proof white, like I mentioned, it needs a little water. So I'm going to get some water over here with my trusty spray bottle. Pick up that water. Dip it into the bleed proof white. Okay. That's over black. Wow. And the sepia. And the gold. So as you can see, that's really... it's hard to beat. It's almost like using whiteout, except a little bit more delicate. You definitely cannot use this with a pen, though. I don't know how much you would have to water it down to use it with a dip pen, but I don't think it's really feasible, to be honest. But it's great if you're going to use a small, like a fine, this is a Transin 40 paintbrush. And it's great just to help fix some of those mistakes. So now that I've done that, the other thing I wanted to do just really quickly is go ahead and test this on some mixed media paper just to see what it looks like when I dropper this paint down or this ink down. This is mixed media. I think this is, what is this, Canson? This is the Canson XL mixed media watercolor paper. So it's not even mixed media. I use this basically for swatching watercolor, so it's kind of a mess. Let me find a blank page with the right side. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-wet the page. First, I'm going to do a dropper full of gold. Oh gosh, I've got to do two. Look how beautiful that is. I hope that the beauty of this gold really shines through in the video. Alright, now we'll try the sepia. Ooh! Look how much that moves. This would be a fun way to do a galaxy. I mean, I'm sure this has already been done, but That's a little bubble at the end of mine. Hold on. There we go. Oh, come on. It's interesting because the matte black does not transport very well across the water, but it leaves, you know, such a stunning pattern when it does. It might be worth it. Okay, cool. That looks awesome. That really tells me a lot about these things. That sepia ink is very mobile and would be great to be used as like sort of a backdrop to something, especially if you put down some masking fluid and that you could pull up to protect the rest of the artwork. Wow, that's awesome. It's going to be some nice abstract work once it's dry. Let's come back here and just make sure it still looks the same now that it's mostly dry. This gold on top is not quite dry, but I think it's definitely, we can definitely say with a surety that it mostly covers the black. Does not cover the sepia as well, but the bleed-proof white does seem to cover all three fairly well. The least well covered is the gold, and I do think that's it, like I mentioned before, because of the granulation. You could probably go on pretty thick with that, and it would probably be just fine. Anyhow, I hope everyone's excited for Inktober. As I said, my theme this year will be skeletal. I will be releasing videos this year because I am crazy. I did want to let everybody know that my method, my process, is I pre-sketch everything in my sketchbook prior to October. I don't want anybody to think that I am able to roll out of bed and just produce art at the speed. So, you know, I've already got sketches in here for the first 10 days. Just a little preview, a little snippet of what's going on. Just so I can really, once October rolls around, I can really come out with and be able to produce 30 days of art. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I guess I will leave you on this beautiful piece of abstract work. And I hope you guys have a great September, and I'll be back in time to escort you through this Inktober. Have a great day.